I'm hearing news coming out of the Middle East is so barbaric and so tragic. Where is God?
There are tons of bad things that happen in the world that they're not directly affecting me, but still feel heavy and you don't understand why.
How do you justify when natural disasters or natural occurrence happen? It's like, why?
That's the one that I struggle with, if I'm honest.
Matt, you've had to walk families through tragedy. What do you recommend?
Oh, man.
How do you process when you see evil in this world?
Satan is real. Evil is real. We're actually in the middle of a battle between this world and the next. Spiritual forces are at war in this world. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this isn't the beach. This is Normandy. This is a battle zone.
Today on the Live Change podcast, we're talking about why does God let bad things happen? It happens to all of us. We open up our news feed or our social app and we see just atrocities from all over the world. We see genocide and war and mass shootings and human slavery, and it's just like, it's overwhelming, and it can be just, it can leave us with this simple question of why? Why, God? And where are you in the face of all this evil in this world? And it can also ask the question is, what are we as Christians, what's our response to all of this? So we're going to have a conversation about that today. But before we jump in, some exciting news about the Live Change podcast. Several of you have expressed your interest to hear new voices and opinions and thoughts and have guests on the Live Change podcast, and we heard you. And so we have some exciting stuff coming up in the near future. We have some wonderful guests coming from outside of LCBC that are going to lend their voice and their wisdom to the podcast. But we also have some really exciting guests coming from inside of LCBC, and one of those guests is with us today. I am really excited to welcome this guy. Matt Parks is one of our communicating pastors at LCBC. He's also our campus pastor for the West Shore campus, and he's also one of my really good friends. Welcome to the Live Change podcast, Matt Parks.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate you letting me be a part of it today.
Dude, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. I've been waiting to get you on here. Joanna and I have been excited to have you on. And we're really excited to give you such a miserably hard topic.
Yeah, it's like an easy, out of the gate, easy one. Yeah, let's do this.
Yeah. Like, Jason got like boundaries and, shame, and you got...
Jason got to eat boiled peanuts.
Yes.
I love boiled peanuts, and you're like giving me the hardest topic I've ever had to wrestle with in my
question.
life. I'm
and
like,
we
thanks, I love you too.
We have no snacks, boiled peanuts.
So boiled peanuts. Why don't you tell the audience here, where are you from that you know that?
So I'm from Northeast Georgia, grew up down south my whole life, moved up to Pennsylvania back in 2005, and thought I was coming here just for 2 years. My mom was like, don't go to the dreaded north. And I literally thought once you cross the Mason-Dixon line, everything north of that was New York City. And I remember I crossed into Lancaster County, and I'm like, I know that smell. And I'm like, that smells like home. And so, yeah, 18 years later, we're still here. We've fallen in love with the North, fallen in love with LCBC and what God's doing here.
So you've been here like almost as long as you've been down south now.
Yeah, Pearl and I just crossed the point that we have known each other longer than we haven't. And we're almost there with LCBC, which is crazy to think about.
Oh, that is crazy. My gosh. Okay, so Matt, as a guest on the podcast, we want to ask you one of the questions we love asking, which is, what fries your taters? So this is the question we've had to answer, and it's basically, what's one of your big annoyances or pet peeves of life?
I thought really hard about this one, and it's cucumbers. I just hate cucumbers. I hate them.
So weird.
Them. Despise cucumbers. I hate the way they touch, the taste of them, the smell of them.
Wait, you hate the way the cucumbers touch? Like cucumbers?
Like they touch your food.
Oh, okay.
And then like the feeling of them. Like I hate everything about cucumbers.
Do you hate cucumbers?
So weird. No, I like cucumbers.
No, like they're straight
but
from
not
Satan.
like a lot, like just like a regular amount.
Wait, do you like pickles?
Nope. They're cucumbers soaked
that's
in
not
evil.
Okay.
Yeah. Like dill is also awful. And
Weird.
So, yeah. I hate them.
Oh my!
Probably one of the worst fights we had early in our marriage was I came home in the summer, and my wife's a little bit of a hippie, and so she's like, "Hey, I've made this awesome summer pizza for us," and so it's like pizza dough, cucumbers, feta cheese, and some other stuff. And I didn't realize we could get so mad so fast with each other. Like, it ended with me eating cereal that night, and then we've never had cucumbers on anything ever since then.
Oh my word. I wish I could DVR an argument and watch it, because I want to watch that one.
And I don't fully know why. Like, I don't know where my like visceral hatred, that's the word I'm looking for, cucumbers come from. But yeah, I hate them.
See, mine is, I have a new one, Joanna. Mine is, I hate when people back up into parking spots.
Yeah, I feel that.
I feel like it's a conveyor belt and they just stopped the line because they want to back up.
Yeah, and it's like, how is that really helping you?
Unless you were Batman, you do not need to pull out that fast.
Everyone
Yeah.
in the military and like law enforcement are like cringing right now.
Yeah.
That's true.
'Cause they're
You can
trained to
leave
do
a
that.
comment. You can leave a comment. You always do. Telling Chad that what fries his taters is silly. But Matt, one last question for you is what made you decide to become a pastor?
Oh man. So coming out of college, in the early 2000s, everybody was saying, find something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And at the time I'm sitting there going, I like a lot of things. Like there's a lot of stuff I love. Sure. And then finally someone just said, find the thing that just drives you crazy, that you hate, and go change it. And I realized the thing that I just, that does fry my taters in a very serious way is I just hate bad churches. And I hate unhealthy churches and toxic churches and unsafe churches. And that comes back from some of my own childhood stuff. And so being able to be a part of a church that's healthy and safe, it just was like, man, I want to create that for people. And so that made me realize like, hey, can we actually change this thing? And then got invited into LCBC and just loved the ride since then.
Wow.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
No, that's really great. For me, so much of what made me become a pastor was I love people. Mm-hmm. So like, and it's interesting. Both are very much so like neighbors, but mine specifically was like I couldn't think of anything else that I could like get into life with people like being a pastor. And one of my favorite things about being a pastor is I love weddings. I love weddings because I love everyone celebrating, and it's one of the moments that they'll remember for the rest of their lives. And if you think about it, this bride and groom will spend the rest of their lives together, and this moment is one of their core memories, and they share it with one other human being, and it's me.
That sounds on brand for you.
How exciting is that?
So you became a pastor to
Do
officiate
weddings?
weddings?
Easily 25%.
Wow.
And then there's also the other stuff, and it's the tragedy. And I love people, and I love being with them in that too. And it's hard, and it's more grueling, but it's also real, and it's human, and it's what we're going to talk about today.
And that's kind of why I want to become a pastor, because like my family, we've gone through some hard stuff. We had some really tragic moments. And the church that we were a part of at the time, instead of meeting us with grace and love and support and putting their arms around us, came at us judging and pointing and shaming. And I'm like, oh man, Jesus is different than that. Like he's not the one coming and saying, yeah, you messed that one up. He's the one who's saying, hey, I'm with you. And so I was like, man, I want to be a part of a church it's safe for broken people and hurting people.
See, and that is an amazing segue into what we're talking about today. Is we're talking about the fact that we look around and there's bad things that happen all around us. There's bad things that happen in the world. There's bad things that happen in our local communities, and there's bad things that happen in our family. So, you know, whether it's big global scale or it's right here in our own family, bad things happen, and they happen to Christians and non-Christians alike. And so many of us as Christians have uttered that question: why? God, why? Why did this happen? Why him? Why her? Why this? Why now? Why? And we've sought answers to this question, and they're not readily available. And so we thought we would just talk about it. Yeah. Okay. So first question I just kind of wanted to hear from all of us is what are some examples of situations that you've had to ask, or maybe you regularly ask, why God?
Oh man. I know for me, anytime that there's a death of a child, like I love burying old people surrounded by family who love them, who have tons of stories about how they lived well and how their family cherished them. Like I love those funerals. The funerals that just keep me up at night, that rip my heart out, are the ones when it's a tragic, whenever it's a child, whenever it's a broken family that is now the funeral is like exposing all of that. Like that's where my heart just starts to bleed. And so for me, it's usually around the death of a child that just rips me to shreds.
How about you, Joanna?
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, right now it's just opening your news app. Like there's just so many things that you feel like are out of control, but you don't know what to do with it. And so, yeah, I would feel similarly, like, and then making it on a smaller scale when I just hear circumstances that my kids' friends are going through. Mm. And you're like, oh my goodness, like, I can't believe that at your age, your friends are dealing with things that are like, they should never have to deal with.
Yeah, some people's normal just blows my mind.
Totally.
For me, it's all of what you said, and especially when it involves abuse of power. Mm. I loathe when there's an abuse of power, and I know how powerful God is, that's when I usually end up asking why, because I'm like, you're so much more powerful than this puny person or persons that are abusing their power, why don't you just take care of them, God?
Yeah.
And that's what usually leads me to going like, just wipe them away. And then it gets really complex.
Yep.
Sounds a lot like Peter whenever they were going into that one town and they didn't welcome him. He's like, do you want us to call fire down on them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I think that like vengeance of like, no, God, that's not right. That's in all of us as we follow Jesus.
Was that Peter or was it James and John? Sons of Thunder. Sons of Thunder. Yes. Yeah, I definitely, I think God would have given me like Chad the earthquake. Just wants to call down earthquakes on people. Thanks a lot, Chad. You know, and it's like, oh, shoot. Yeah, those are, I think, situations, and in the comments, like don't be afraid to contribute to the conversation and share some of yours. But so how do you deal with the feelings and thoughts? Like, because we can't just wallow in them and stuff. They have to be processed in some way, or maybe we do just wallow. I don't know. But how do you deal with the thoughts when they come up and you see these terrible things happening, in your local communities and in the world at large?
Oh man! So there was a season. So 2016 was a really hard year for me. In that year, I was at the Berks campus. I got to be a part of launching that campus. It was an incredible experience. And so we launched 2017, started off just really, really hard because we got a phone call on a Monday morning and got a call from a family who just said Ben didn't wake up. And Ben was an 8-year-old and he just passed away in his sleep. And it just was a gut-wrenching, it was one of the hardest funerals I was ever a part of. And so we moved from Ben, and then 6 or 8 weeks later, we get another phone call on a Monday morning that Connor, the four-wheeler didn't make the turn, and he hit a tree, and Connor had passed. And so, like, here we are, like, back-to-back, sitting with just these tragic moments. And then just a couple of weeks later, for those of us who've been around LCBC for a while, we got the horrible news about Scott Federoff passing away. And so I remember, like, it was now, like, 12, 18 weeks in a row that we had just had these heavy, hard situations that are unjust. They're not fair. They're not right. They made me mad. And I remember I was just scared about my team. I was scared about my health. And so I actually reached out to a local counselor, and I just said, hey, we need help. Like, we got to figure this thing out. And we did a single session, and she said something that just was so profound to me. She just said, the feelings of grief, this feeling of overwhelmness, that it will come out. And she said, you have to give it space to come out. And so she told us as a team just to individually each day find a spot that we just allow ourselves to feel what we feel and to just sit by ourselves in our safe place and to let the feelings come. And so since then, as we've walked through other stuff, I've just found myself like, I can't control what I feel. I can't control what triggers me. I can't control which newsreels grab me. But I can control giving those feelings space to be processed and to be filled. But when I don't, then all of a sudden I'm screaming at the dog when really I'm just mad about something else.
Yeah.
But Joanna, the thing with what Matt just said is I have been in those kind of moments of tragedy, and I don't get the help that I need because I feel this guilt of it's not me. I'm not that kid's family. I'm not the spouse of that person. I'm not there. So processing for me sometimes feels selfish. To go to a therapist, to go to a counselor, it's like, suck it up. Suck it up when you see tragedy and you're processing the horrors that we see in this world that we live in. Is it selfish to be bothered by it and wounded by it and need to process it with other people or friends or therapists or whatever? Is it selfish?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's funny, actually. I just wrestled with that this week with just a different circumstance that happened. And it's funny, so what had happened had triggered something then in my own story that I wasn't even anticipating that it was going to trigger. And so I actually reached out to a trusted friend, and that's how I started. Hey, I feel selfish even feeling this right now because something really tragic and sad happened to someone else. I should be tragic and sad, like, around that situation, like, not about me. And it's funny because I think even as I've just even continued to live over the last week or so, the thing I keep coming back to is like, actually, that's why we do life together because we need one another. And it's actually like not, I don't know, I kind of got over the hump of it not necessarily being selfish, but that's like where community happens. That's when you get to be real with people. That's when, like, I'm grateful I had a trusted friend to say, hey, like, this is how I'm feeling. I just needed to share it with someone else. Like, so it didn't just continue to sit in me and with me. And of course that friend is super wise and was just like, hey, like, just give it back to God. Like, just keep praying through it. in any way. Like we even just exchanged some different scriptures to do that. And so I don't know. I think I wrestle with the same thing. But I think the other part of this conversation is, and you touched on it a little bit, is even when the thing doesn't even directly affect me. And so like I can open Instagram and like there are tons of bad things that happen in the world that they're not directly affecting me, but still feel heavy and you don't understand why. And I don't know, like I have to feel like I can make the choice to like turn some of it off without feeling guilty that I don't like care about it. Because like, I don't know, I just, at the pace that news and the world moves, I don't know that we were ever meant to be able to know it all, see it all, carry it all. It's just not good for my soul. Like I know that I can only take so much before I feel just like stuck and broken and like hopeless.
I'm so glad you're saying that, because for me, one of my mechanisms that I go into when I see atrocities, especially global atrocities, when I see things that are of just this paramount scale, I tend to get into a vortex of that. I tend to read everything, watch everything, listen to everything, contribute in every way. I tend to just become very focused on it, but I do watch it as it depletes my tank. And I think we have to ask ourselves why. Why am I watching? What am I learning? What good am I doing in this situation by becoming obsessed with it? And I'm not saying that there isn't good to be done, and I'm definitely not saying don't turn a blind eye. Please, no, not saying that. But there is a sense of, the human soul can only carry so much, and where does that leave off, and where does prayer come in?
Have you guys ever heard like whenever someone's going through the foster to adopt scenarios and the training that any attention is good attention to some kids, and so we've heard about where kids will do negative things because it gains attention, and so they'll do negative things because they just crave any type of attention because it releases the dopamine. It releases the like, hey, I've got someone's attention. I think sometimes we do that with bad experiences around the world, to where we get the dopamine hit, we get the rush, we get the thrill, we get the like, oh my goodness, this thing's happening. And so there's moments that I've wondered, do I actually care about what's happening, or am I using them for my entertainment like I would watch a war movie? Am I actually using that because all of a sudden it's sensationalist and it's gossip, it's the drama, it's the, oh my goodness, I can't believe that. And I'm not caring for the actual people. Yeah. I'm just really just entertained by them in a dark and twisted kind of way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting. And I might not get all the details right, but even with that like submarine that ended up like being lost and everything, like I would say that even was a thing that kind of felt like that, where it was almost just like and this is terrible and tragic, but like that reality TV thing where it didn't really affect any of us. Our curiosity was so off the charts about the whole thing. But it's like they were real people.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, I would totally like agree with that sentiment. And I think that that's like kind of an easy place to like find yourself in.
So, okay. So throwing in a question here, how do you test to see which it is?
Oh man. I've had to like ask, like, am I actually doing anything about this? Mm-hmm. Because if I'm just entertained, like if I watch it, then walk away, then I'm just using them.
Okay.
Like, this is a terrible analogy, so you can cut this if you don't like it. I mean, pornography is you use the image for your pleasure, then you toss it aside and you move away. A relationship is where you invest in that person, stay with that person, walk with that person, and then you're committed to them. And I think some of this trauma that we see in our world, we use it just like we use images online and then discard it and move away. We just use it for our gratification versus being like, no, I'm getting in the trenches with you. I'm actually walking with you in this. And if I'm going to walk away from it and not do anything, then I have to really ask, am I just using them versus actually caring about them?
And does it mean like, and we'll get into this, but like, is prayer and praying about the situations a way to follow along with it? You know, like, because I don't think everyone's built to build a hospital, but
that's doing something about it.
Totally.
I mean, how many
That's what I
times
was
do we
gonna
watch
say.
something and not even pray about it?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I didn't pray for the submarine people.
Yeah.
Like I watched it, but I was like, oh man.
Right.
And I went on about my day.
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And things that are going on in the Middle East, and how many times have we seen the atrocities, but how many times have we actually gotten on our hands and knees and sought God's wisdom? But speaking of God, we've got to talk about God because when we see, and I'm hearing news coming out of the Middle East and stuff that just is so barbaric and so tragic and so the atrocities, the only word that I can use is atrocities that are happening all over the place. It brings to me some thoughts of where is God? And I know Christians all over the world are asking that question. Why? Why God? Why would God let this happen? And so I think some people come to a realization or they come to this self-diagnose thing of God where it's God is a couple of things. Either, and I called them the big four. God is either not strong enough, not good enough, doesn't care enough, or isn't real enough for these situations. Because like it's somehow some people compartmentalize how bad things happen in this world where there is a good God. So what do you guys say to the people that are struggling with God's not strong enough, good enough, cares enough, or real enough to deal with the atrocities that are happening all over this world?
Yeah, so it's funny. I don't know all the time. And so like I think that's probably one thing that we could all just admit right out of the gate, like even as we continue the conversation, is like I think for me personally, I can talk a lot from my own experiences and what I've seen God do in my own life and lives of the ones around me that for me checks the boxes that I believe he's all four of these things. I think what's really hard to wrestle through is when you don't know how to make it reconcile that there's still bad stuff in the world. And so like, I very much believe God is all four of these things. And that has to live next to the fact that on this side of heaven, terrible things happen every day that I just will never understand. And with or without action, may not be able to do anything with.
Yeah. That's a paradox.
Yeah.
Like where God can be good and he can be strong enough, but you cannot understand.
Yeah.
And not understanding is not something that I think we as humans do well.
Yeah.
I think not understanding, we paradox we don't sit well in because you can't, prop your feet up and feel comfortable in it.
Yeah. And even just listening to you talk, Joanna, like I think about how so many times, like this is all I see in life. This is all that I see in life. This is all I see in history. This is all I see within the world. And part of this is trusting that God sees it all.
Yeah.
And so even though I just see this like microcosm of time and space and place, like God in his grand vision sees reality. And I've got to trust that he is good. He is enough. He does care. He is real. Even whenever this moment, it doesn't make sense to me. I think back to like whenever, like this reveals to me what I expect from God in my reality. Because if I think this world, this time, this place is the design, then all of a sudden I'm like, the design's broken. Like this, in the right design, this shouldn't be going this way. So if I think this is supposed to be paradise, then he messed it up. And
Right.
he's absent. But if I put this in the perspective of what it actually is, that we're not in paradise, we're actually in the middle of a battle between this world and the next, like the spiritual forces are at war in this world, then all of a sudden it's like, this isn't the beach, this is Normandy. This is a battle zone. This isn't. And then if you're expecting a battle zone, it looks different than if you're expecting a luxury beach.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
No,
but
Yeah, totally.
I think that helps me process, Matt, to be honest. And I think I want to go a little bit further. I want to stay there for a second because I think that truth can cover a multitude of these questions. So like, how do you maintain your faith and hope when confronted with persistent evil in this world? So where does the evil come from, Matt? Let's just talk about it for a second. Where does the evil come from? And how do you process when you see evil in this world? So I guess what I'm asking is, can you elaborate a little bit on that brokenness that you described?
So I think one of the things that I've had to come to grasp with is Satan is real. Like evil is real. We're told in Peter that he is a roaming lion looking for who he can devour. And like, I think we're naive if we think he's not real. But I think Satan is actively at work to bring destruction and chaos. And so we see the effects of that all around us. And we've also got to realize that this world, so God, back to the biblical story, I mean, we all know that God created the garden, everything was perfect. And then sin enters, the world breaks as it was designed is broken, the relationship is tattered, And all of a sudden, what was is no more. And so we have to realize that we're in the fallout of that. And so we're in the middle of a broken battle where God is actively coming to restore, to redeem, to rescue, and we're not rescued yet. Like we're not redeemed yet. And so there's still bombs flying, and there's still hatred in there, and there's still hurt happening. And so for me, the coexistence of evil and God is not where is God or why is evil. It's I'm not saying, God, why is this happening? I'm saying God thinks that you're even close, thinks that you're even coming near, because God didn't have to show back up. Like, this is the mess we caused. This is the mess that our sinfulness brought about. And God isn't the one sitting there going, yo, you messed it up, I'm out. He's the one who's saying, no, let me come close. Let me get near.
You know, I think that's it in a nutshell. Is I think it has something to do with it's less about God and more about us. And I think our it's interesting when things are good, we don't ask why God.
Yeah.
We just don't. When things are great and peaceful and loving, we don't go like, "What, God? Why do we deserve this?" But when things are bad, when things are wicked, when things are evil, we ask God why.
Yeah, I mean that was Job's whole story.
Yeah.
You know, where it was like, hey, like I feel like essentially God just said like you just can't kill him, right? And so the enemy did so many things short of that. And it's crazy just when you read at different points of like Job's story and even his conversations with God, like it gets pretty dark. He asks some pretty big questions, but to me it's mind-blowing that like his faith had to have been enough that he kept talking to God.
Even with
like that's incredible.
It's incredible. And even like with Job's story, like I can hear the story of Job and be like, God, why are you such a jerk to Job?
Right.
If I'm looking at it from Job's perspective.
Yep.
But if I'm Job saying, here's my life, use me. Here's my life, God, I'm offering it to you. God's like, all right, I'm going to use your life in a way that you're going to hate, but generations will be affected by your story. And so if we're saying, God, use me for my good, then we're going to be disappointed. If we say, God, I trust you, use me for your good, then he might take us to hell and back like Job. But Job's story has been so much hope, so much like comfort to so many people since then. And it's Job saying, okay, my life doesn't matter. Your story does, God. And that's the grander perspective of narrowing my view or expanding my view from the little bit I see.
Yep. And even in Job's time, in his narrow story, he still ended up with huge blessings.
Totally.
After a massively horrible trial that I couldn't even fathom, you know?
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, like, for us to keep God in the conversation, like you were sharing, Matt, like, that's the heart posture of like, I don't understand, God, but just please stay close. You know? And anyway, how many Psalms of David is just like, he was pouring his heart out, but God was still close. He's near to the brokenhearted. Like, I don't know, David, like that was just very much his song too. And so, the gratefulness that God's close, even if you don't understand.
And, you know, it reminds me of when I'm watching someone paint a painting. So if you've ever watched an artist paint a painting and you see only what he's painting now, but you don't see what he's going to paint. Yeah. You don't see the grand picture. And a lot of us, our lives are like that. And we go through tragedy and we haven't seen the final product, but we want to judge it. We want to dictate it on just what we see.
Yeah. And I mean, how Bob Ross goes from a blank canvas to a magical landscape in 30 minutes or less. Talk about another thing I don't understand.
Joanna, that's exactly it. Is sometimes Bob Ross, I'll be watching Bob Ross paint, and you know, he'll have these beautiful trees and stuff, and all of a sudden he's like slashing it with black, and I'm like, oh, you ruined it, Bob.
It's like Bert Umber enters the picture, and you don't know where he's going with it.
And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, you know, he ruined it, but I'm not the artist, and I don't know what he's doing. But where does free will come in? Because here's my thing is, if God wanted to eliminate all depravity in this world, don't you think he'd have to eliminate free will?
Yeah.
And I think we're all pretty big fans of free will.
But I'm not as much a big fan of free will as I am of love. Like to eliminate depravity is to eliminate love. Because if I can only love by choice. If I can't love by choice, I'm a slave. I'm a robot. I'm mandated. So I have to be given the option to not love, to not follow. And that is where free will and that's where sin comes in. And so we can say, God, where are you? And he's going to be saying, I created space for you to love me, for you to know me. I mean, like, if you want to be my slave, I can make that, but that I can make it. But then you have nothing.
Because humans have the overwhelming propensity to be able to do incredible good.
Yeah.
And in love, but they can also do incredible evil.
I had a youth pastor years ago who he pulled up like a scale, like one of those old school scales you'd see like in a pharmacy, and he would say God had to measure out the amount of love that he could allow us equal to the amount of evil that we could create, and he had to figure out how to balance it perfectly. And so as much as we can love God is how much we can hate God and bring evil to the world. And so he had to find a perfect balance because they had to be equal.
Wow. And it's almost like Jesus is ultimately the hope for the side of the scale that is unimaginable.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also interesting too, because I think the other thing I have to remind myself is not everyone sees the world from my vantage point, or even through the lens of my worldview around love or my faith in Jesus even. And just that, then that also causes hurt people to hurt people. And so like, there's just so many different levels at play, especially when catastrophic, like human to human errors or whatever you'd call it happen, that like, it's just, there's more to the story at an individual level. And a lot of times I think we just see the big macro thing in the news, but like at the end of the day, like to what you just said, it is like, it's a people to people thing. Yeah. And I think that that's just also really hard to reconcile.
The fact that God loves every human being, that he loves every one of his children, is flabbergasting to me. And the fact that he loves the people that do evil things in this world as much as he loves the people that do the good in this world, and that he wants none of them to be condemned.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's love of another kind.
Oh, my word. Yeah.
And to use a quote from the gentleman you mentioned, Scott Federoff.
Yeah.
It's
outrageous love of another kind. Yeah.
But let's talk about, like, it's beyond free will though, because I know there's some people out there that their son or daughter died of natural causes, or there was someone drowned, or there was an accident, or maybe on a grand scale, like, the same ocean that I go play in my kids creates tsunamis. And, like, we can all kind of go like, okay, there's evil in the world, there's bad people in the world, but how do you justify when natural disasters or natural occurrence happen? It's like, why? What was the possible good or reason for that?
That's the one that I struggle with, if I'm honest. Yeah. Like, I can get around people doing bad things so much easier than I can nature doing bad things. Mm-hmm. And so that's where, if I'm just being really vulnerable, like, I have to trust God more around tornadoes and hurricanes and tsunamis than I do mass shootings and war. Because war, I'm like, oh, that's a people problem. Like, I know how to work with people, and I can get my head around that. I honestly don't know how to justify some of the natural stuff that we see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it, because I would probably echo all of that. Like, I think that that's a difficult one, because it's like, you don't know why. You don't know why it was where. Yeah. And then you don't know why the outcome took place in the way that it did.
Yeah.
I've processed this because, a couple years back, there was that tsunami that, killed so many people. And I began to process then the brokenness of the entire cosmos. I began to process the fact that I don't think the brokenness just broke the human heart. I think the brokenness actually broke everything.
Absolutely.
And I think there is something to say about when you look at Adam and Eve, there was a peace. There was a cosmic peace in the world. And the brokenness of the world that you described earlier, Matt, I think it affects everything. And I think that when sin entered, and death is going to keep happening.
Yeah.
There's this amazing passage in Luke where Jesus talks about tragedy happening. Like, he talks about there was some people murdered, and there was also a tower that fell, and it was like a natural disaster kind of thing. And and Jesus said, those 18 people, were they worse than everyone else? No. The 18 people that were crushed by the tower, they weren't any worse or any better than anyone else. And he said, but all of us are going to die someday. And he turned it in a way that he said, guess what? It's just another sign of death in this world. Get ready.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the fact that he brought that helps me kind of wrestle through this idea of, something, we all will die. And it might be in this cosmic level, it might be on a natural level, it might be at the hands of another person, or it might be warm in our bed at 85. But we will all die.
Yeah. Another interesting thing about that story with Jesus is I never thought about how they were talking about it, and Jesus was aware of it. And so like there's sometimes that I feel guilty, like, oh my goodness, am I distracted by what's happening around the world? Am I like, should I be concerned? No, we've always been concerned about this stuff. Like they're talking about the 18 people, they're talking about the fire, they're talking about what Pilate did to the mobs, and Jesus was aware of it. And I find solace that Jesus is aware of what catches my attention. And he didn't shame them for being aware. He didn't shame them for having concerns or being worried about it. He guided them through it. And there's moments that I think God just sees that, oh man, that's got your attention. Hey, let's talk about what you're seeing. Why is that catching you? Why are you noticing that? What's that triggering in you that you care about that? Because there's some things that happen around the world that we don't care about. And there's other things that we do care about. And so the fact that caught my attention, what is that saying about me? And then God lovingly guides me to understand him more through that.
Yeah, and I think that's when it's good to also remember that I think in a lot of ways this is a personal thing. So like I love that we have a personal God that says, hey, what catches Matt might not catch Joanna, and I'm going to be close to both of them regardless. Yep. It's funny, I saw just an influencer, like speaker I follow on social, someone called him out for not posting about what was happening in the Middle East and was just basically like, hey, that feels inconsistent with other things you've talked about. Why haven't you mentioned this one? And like their response was brilliant. And it was just like, hey, it's because I've actually been dealing with this other thing personally in my family over the last week. And my soul couldn't give attention to both things at once. And I needed to take care of what was close to home for me first. Yep. That was my choice. And I understand if you would have had a different one. And so like, I just think also recognizing that what we choose to activate around or respond to or how we choose to deal with it, like that's also a personal thing. And I think we can be really quick to like be frustrated with one another that it's like, oh my gosh, Chad, I can't believe you don't care about the thing I care about. Why aren't you consumed by that? And it's like, well, I don't know. I'm not there with you right now. Doesn't mean I don't care, but I'm not there with you right now.
And even to take that just a little bit of a different way, I love the book Screw Tape Letters, where have you guys talked about that on the podcast yet?
No.
Oh,
C.S.
man,
Lewis.
I love that book. Like, so basically the idea is like, if we have, let's say that there's guardian angels, could we potentially have guardian demons, that the guardian demon's role is to tempt us and make us distracted. And so the whole book's about
it's a fictional account, right?
It's a fictional account, C.S. Lewis, yeah. So like it's one mentor demon coaching another demon about how to like tempt the humans. And so it's just a great book about how spiritual warfare works, and I love it. But one of the things that it's done for me is it's made me wonder, like, how am I being distracted from what God wants me to be focused on? And I think one of the things that you were just saying is his response was, I can't be focused on that because I'm so focused at home. And I think sometimes Satan gets us so focused on the global thing that we don't care about what's going on at home. And I think there's sometimes that our news feed is used by Satan to make us be so concerned, so emotionally exhausted over here, it excuses our behavior here. And so we're mean to our kids, we ignore our neighbors, we don't care about what's right in front of us because we're so concerned about what's over there. Chad, we talked about 2017 and just sitting with some of those families. And one of the things that I found myself saying to so many families in the ICU and into the emergency room and next to the deathbed is it actually came from a pretty heavy moment in my own family where my dad had I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but my dad had a terminal disease. Symptoms came on real quick. He was given about a 4-year life expectancy at that point. The only thing that would extend his life is a double lung transplant. That's a really weird thing to pray for when you're praying for a double transplant, because it's like, for my dad to live, I'm praying for someone else's loved one to die. That's a weird thing that made me kind of view God's perspective differently in all of this. So when we talk about that little bubble, I'm seeing my dad, but I'm realizing that for God to answer that prayer is to actually cause someone else's worst nightmare. But in that whole season, we found ourselves in just some really, really hard moments with my dad. And I remember this one day I got a phone call, and it was, Dad's back in the ICU. This could be the moment. I'm in Pennsylvania. He's down in Georgia. And so like I'm at a friend's house and I'm wrestling with, do I need to get in my car and instantly drive to Georgia? And my friend, whose dad had gone through leukemia, she came to me as soon as we hung up the phone, and she held my shoulders and she said, Matthew, look at your feet. And I'm like, excuse me? And she said, Matthew, look at your feet. And so I obeyed and I looked down at my feet, and she said, you've got to stand on the ground you've got. You got to stand on the ground you got right where you are, because anxiety lives in the future, shame lives in the past. And if you get distracted from where you are, you'll miss where you are. And so that moment of like, where am I right now that God has planted me? This is where I've got to respond. And so when it comes to some of this pain and some of this trauma and some of the stuff that's happening around the world, it's easy to move from where I'm actually planted to get distracted by all the other stuff and to forget, no, God's planted me right here next to my neighbor, next to my wife, next to my kids, next to our colleagues, to care about right here. And as far as my arms can reach is where I need to care the most. And then the stuff beyond that, that's probably a distraction more than anything right now. Not to say that we shouldn't care about the world, but like sometimes I use that as an excuse to care about what's right next to me.
Yeah, no, I think that's good for sure.
So tell me something, like, Matt, you've had to walk families through tragedy. What is the Christian's response to the people around them that are going through human suffering? What do you recommend? Because I think we have a tendency to want to put words. We want to excuse God. We want to apologize for God. Or what do you say to someone that has one of these tragedies happen in their life that you don't even know?
Man, I think the thing that I've just learned and what I've seen is like, just don't speak on behalf of God. Like, you don't know what he's doing. And you may think you understand what God's doing, but I think sometimes we speak so confidently on behalf of God that we actually just do more damage. And so I remember one season, after burying some of those kids, we'd have people come up to the moms and just say, I guess God needed another angel. And I'm sitting there going, well, then God's a jerk. Like, well, God's got a plan. Well, then he's mean. Well, his plan's messed up. So like, we speak on behalf of God. And what I've learned and what I loved as I've walked through my own trauma is I love being reminded that Jesus wept and Jesus is crying with me and Jesus is holding me. And so whenever I'm stepping into someone's worst day, I just love reminding them Jesus is stepping in it with them. And that Jesus, as Romans 8:28 says, he doesn't cause all things, but he works through all things. And so many times we think God causes everything. And I don't think God causes everything. I think he knows everything. And I think he then works with everything. And I think that's a separation of God's sovereignty. Like, God's sovereignty isn't him being a puppet master forcing everything. It's not enough. I know how to work this out for good.
Yeah.
And so I'm coming close. I'm crying with you. I'm bringing a peace that passes all understanding. I remember at my dad's deathbed, we're praying for, give us another day with Dad. And then I just realized, no, that's selfish. Dad will die. Like, that day's coming. Like, it's like, I know that we need to pray for people to keep living, but let's be real, like, we all gonna die. And so I was like, no, God, when it's Dad's time, give us a peace that passes all understanding. And so I had tremendous pain and grief and anger that my dad died so young, so unfairly. But yet at the same time, I felt God coming close and say, no, but I'm here to give you peace. I'm here to give you comfort. And I'm here to hold you. And then I feel like at that moment, I'm seeing God rightly. Whereas if I'm sitting there going, God, where are you? Why is bad thing? I'm distracted by this thing. Versus God saying, no, I'm right here crying with you. I'm right here with you. I'm right here with you. I'm right here with you.
And I don't have answers. Like, I think that it's our job. God will present himself to those families in tragedy.
Yeah.
That's the thing about our God is he loves them more. He cares about them more. He knows their situation more. He knows them more.
Yep.
And I think our job is to sit and wait.
Yeah.
And sit and wait with them.
Yeah.
I think everything I've ever regretted saying in those moments is because I felt the need to insert my human wisdom.
Yeah.
And it's just about, I'm just going to be.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be here. I don't understand.
I'm crying with you. God's crying with you.
Yeah.
This hurts us. It hurts him as much as it hurts us.
And it's funny too. I mean, I think we could probably all think of different scenarios where it's played out in a great way in one of those moments for you personally and like a not great way. And so, yeah, even your stories probably reminded me of two different scenarios where it went great. And great is such the wrong word to use, but a positive experience with like how God's presence was presented versus like a non-positive that then I think makes people ask even more questions around who God is. And so anyway, when my grandmother passed, it was like kind of a similar, it was unexpected. And what that person did for me and my aunt and my mom in that moment was just like, I'm going to give you space. And so then the three of us just got to sit there and pray together, pray over just my Nana. And I remember my aunt saying, like, Lord, she just wants to be with you. So who are we to almost pray against like her will and likely the story that God had for her life. But in that moment, that person walked in and just said, hey, we're going to give you space. Take all the time you need. Yeah. And it's in contrast. And I know I've shared this before, but when Kevin and I had walked through a miscarriage, we had a woman come into our room from a faith-based, and again, I mean, she was even coming in with the best of intentions, but it was just different in a sense of trying to explain why this happened. And then ultimately ending with like, we'd love to give you a blanket to like remember this moment by. And it was like, those were just two very like contrasting experiences where it was like, when you take the time to step into and read the room and to like invite God's presence in, I don't know, those moments have just been more positive, even in the midst of something terrible. And they just like have two very different like flavors for like what people need, I think, and honoring that like in those moments. So anyway.
I think it goes back to love your neighbor.
Yeah.
It doesn't say give wisdom to your neighbor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus says love your neighbor. And love sometimes shuts up.
Yeah. Well, and even in Job's example, he had friends that were just trying to tell him all kinds of things in that moment. None of them were helpful.
Yep.
And you know, when I was younger, when I was a young pastor, I always felt like I had to wear the cape. Mm-hmm. And I had to come in with like, you know, I need to be the one that gives them the
all
words.
the answers. Yeah.
You know, you know, if this one doesn't work, I'll try another. It's like Michael Scott with like, you know, opening jokes. It's like sometimes I come with 3 or 4. We're talking to people in tragedy and we're saying like, you know, well, you know, God has a plan, and we try out different things, and it's like, just shut up.
Yeah. Just cry with them.
Just cry with them. And the more I've grown as a pastor, the less I say.
Yeah.
Because it's not necessary.
It's funny. In 2016, I just started ending my prayers just kind of randomly with saying, God, I love you, I trust you, and I thank you. And it was fascinating praying that for about 6 months and then having the first child die. And it was at that moment I was like, so God, in this moment, how do I say I still love you, I still trust you, and I still thank you? And I've realized that for so many times, I just need to find the way in those moments of pain and of unquestionable like circumstances, like, okay, God, what does love look like right now? What does thankfulness look like? What does trust look like? And just clinging to that versus figuring out why, because I don't think we'll know until eternity.
That's true. So on the other side of that is we as humans could grow numb. Like, so I think what I don't want to do is I don't want to celebrate the fact that, you know, we can just turn off our emotions and turn off the TV. And how do we as Christians not grow numb? It reminds me of this scene from Hotel Rwanda. So not exactly a feel-good movie, by the way. Like if you're looking to escape this weekend, don't click on Hotel Rwanda. But it is a profoundly powerful movie about Rwandan genocide. And this one scene in the movie, this camera crew comes in from like, I guess it was like CNN or something, and they start taking video of what's happening in Rwanda. And one of the people says, oh my goodness, thank goodness, you know, thank the Lord, because now they're going to show this video to the Americans, and the Americans are going to see it, and they're going to bring some help. And the cameraman goes, I wouldn't hold your breath. And they go, why? And he goes, what's going to happen is this will play on the news tonight. And those people in America will say, oh my gosh, that's terrible. And then they'll go back to eating their dinner. And it was this sense of total numbness, apathy to it. And so, like, is there a balance of apathy versus I can only care for so much?
Oh, there's got to be. I mean, we're not built to carry the weight of the world. Like, only God can do that. Like, only God can know the number of hairs on everybody's head and everybody's concern and how to respond to it. I feel like we have to say, okay, God, is this my ball to carry? Is this the thing that you've placed in my lap to carry? And if not, I know my place well enough to say, I trust you. Because if I feel like I got to fix everyone's problem, then I'm taking the role of God versus saying, okay, God, what have you placed me in front of to actually carry the ball for? So personally, my wife and I, we care a whole lot about clean water in Africa. Like, we love World Vision. We love the work that they do. We love child sponsorship. And so we've focused and done something with them versus nothing with everyone. And so it's like, hey, let's go the distance with one organization that we trust, that we love, that we know is making a difference, and then say, okay, God, here's our best effort with our life. We can make a difference there, and then I've got to trust that you're sovereign enough to make a difference with all the rest.
Wow, it's a great example.
Yeah, so I would agree with that. Like, I think so much of it is like, maybe even what we talked about earlier, like, what is the thing, maybe you could say that fries your taters, like, what is the thing
Yeah.
that just like, you can't stop thinking about that you want to be better while recognizing it can't be everything. And so, yeah, I think that Kevin and I have had similar conversations. Like, what are the organizations then that align with the things that, keep us up at night? What are ways that in small ways in our own backyard, we can step into those circles and be a part of the conversation, while also holding intention that I'm probably not going to fix it. And like, we just have to be okay with that. And so, we're not going to get to perfect on this side of heaven. Not everything is going to reconcile itself on this side of heaven. And so how can I just be a little bit more of like Jesus to those around me, based on the burden that like he's carrying with me? Cause I think that's the other thing too, is like, it's also really easy to feel like you care about it and you can fix it and you're going to do it on your own. And it's like, no, like God still needs to be invited into even the small moves you're making to try to make an impact, in whatever the like little niche or space that you find that you're activated around.
Wow.
I love war history. I really get into it. And so that
Of course, you're over 40, right?
Be quiet.
Because I am a firm believer that once a man crosses the age of 40, he must either get into smoking meat or World War II history.
What happens if you started that at like 18?
I was going to say, have you met my
You
husband?
just were ahead of the game.
Oh man, I'm an old soul. So it made me think about like in World War II, you had the foot soldiers all the way across the Western Front and the Pacific Front, or the Eastern Front and the Western Front. And so each of those soldiers, they couldn't care about the magnitude of the whole war. They just had to worry about holding their line for their moment to advance the spot that they were placed. And I think sometimes we have to remember that we're foot soldiers who we're placed in God's kingdom to play the part that we're in, to move the line forward with where we are. And I've got to trust him with the rest of the magnitude of the battles going on in this planet.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because even in that example, I'm going to try a little bit. I'm under 40 and a woman, but they wouldn't have even known the whole picture of the battle they were fighting.
Yeah.
And so, like, isn't it true that in some of those instances, there were still battles happening, but the war was actually over because they just didn't have access to all of that information. And so it's funny, like we sit at home on our couch and like we think we know so much just because of what's accessible to us, but we still don't understand, which is like also mind blowing, like in and of itself, that we even have the advancements to be able to know so many things at one time.
Which takes me back to the tension of prayer, because like there's this one part where we're told to pray boldly, like to enter the throne room and pray boldly before our God. But then Jesus said to pray, "Our Father in heaven, holy be your name. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." And so there's this tension of like, make your declarations before God. And there's this other tension of like, God, I don't understand, but I trust your will to be done. Mm-hmm. And so I found myself in those moments just saying, God, whatever you're doing, let me be faithfully about doing that, however that plays out. Like your will be done. So even if I don't understand how this moment and this battle and this line fits the big picture, and just let me be faithful to doing your will right here, right now.
Yeah.
Trusting that you see the big picture.
Which is hard enough. Like just even if we all just do that thing,
oh man,
that's so hard.
But so many wonderful things in this world have been done by just kicking the ball that's in front of us. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's magnitude. Like, you have great men and women that were Christians, like, fighting for civil rights or creating hospitals or charitable organizations or orphanages. And but then there's also this dear little woman that was in the church that I grew up in named Barb. And she was just a light in my life. And she was just kind. And she was this sweet little old lady that gave me candy every Sunday morning. And she was being light in the darkness by just being faithful where her feet were in that moment. And I guess what I want to say is not every one of you is going to fly to Israel. Not every one of you is going to wipe away the tears of those that have experienced loss. But everyone can be a light in the darkness exactly where they are, and you can pray for the bigger battle that God is looking at and experiencing all over the world.
I think the more we know in the world, the more it causes us to say, God, I don't understand, but I trust. Yeah. And so instead of saying, God, where are you in all of this? I think it's a chance to say, God, I trust you in all of this.
Yeah. So what is the ultimate hope, though? So I think we should end this time together by talking about the fact that we talked about a broken world. We talked about that this world is slowly dying, and there's evil in this world, and everything like that, and the brokenness. But God is pretty clear that the brokenness will end. So let's talk about that for 1 second.
Yeah, dude, I'm gonna take this just a little bit of a different way. I got two ultimate hopes for me. One ultimate hope is I know that at the end of time, Jesus, some way, somehow, in his plan, will come back and set it all right. Like, I believe that day's coming, that he'll wipe away every tear, he'll correct every wrong, he'll judge every evil. Like, I know that he is a just, good God, and he will come and restore order. So I know that day's coming somehow, some way, sometime. So that's like one hope. But that's like too big, too far for me to comprehend. And it's also like too much of an escape for me, just to kind of be like, Jesus is going to come back. It's all going to burn up, Like, it's just like dismissive as so far, so big. So like my personal hope is I just want to get across the finish line and hear, well done, good and faithful servant. Like, that's what I care about the most, because I can't understand all of that. That's so far beyond my comprehension. Like, you got to be sovereign to deal with that. I just want to be faithful to live every day that God puts me on this planet, to faithfully say, here am I, use me. What's the line that you want me to push today? How do you want me to show up today? What do you want me to care about today? What is the thing that you prompted me today that your spirit says, Matt, notice that today? And I just want to get across the finish line and hear, well done. Well done. Man, you faithfully lived your life. You did everything I had planned for you. Well done, good and faithful servant.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I think for me, it's just the idea, and we talked about love earlier, that it's just like, God, show me how to love well today. Whatever that means, show my family how to love well today. It's been interesting, even just, in our house, like we're just dealing with some different things. And honestly, some of them are relationship things. Some of them are things we don't understand, while on the macro, they might be small things. But that's what we've been praying, is like, help me know how to love today. God, send your spirit, whether it's with me, Kevin, Junie, or Finn. Like, let us just be that light in places that feel difficult. And almost the idea of like, how do we just leave them better than what we found them, and just invest well in what we've been given.
I love that. If Jason was here with us, I would ask him to tell this story, so I'm going to do my best to tell it for him. But I ever since Jason told me this story, it has been my sense of hope for this world. And he told the story of when he had his son tape a Alabama football game. And
probably had him record it. I don't know if he had him tape it.
I am over 40, Joanna. So he had Silas record an Alabama football game. And somewhere along the line, it got leaked to Jason that Alabama comes back in a huge major victory and wins the game. Jason goes home and begins to watch that game. And halfway through, it looks like Alabama is going to lose. But he knows that by the end of this game, they will be victorious. Mm-hmm. And we have that hope that at the end of this game, at the end of this life, at the end of this story, Jesus will be victorious. I may not know why, and I may not know how, and I may not have all the best answers, but I know who wins. And that day is coming.
Yep. Yep.
And we have that assurance, don't we? I wanted to leave us with this passage. Romans 8:18 says, "For I consider that the suffering of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is revealed to us." And I think glory is coming. So, Matt, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for letting me be a part of it.
And Joanna, as always. And as always, thank you so much for being a part of the Live Change podcast family. And we love when you guys give comments and make sure you share this podcast with other people so that they can be a part of the conversation. And as always, with the Live Change podcast, we talk about now that your life changed by Christ, it's important to go out and live that change out.